Hello, my name is Jimmy, and this is the 2022 Mazda MX-30. Mazda's first electric vehicle, and it's a quirky one. Doug DeMero is going to love this one. But let's talk about this vehicle a little bit first here. So Mazda, being a boutique manufacturer, isn't like Nissan, Toyota, Honda. They don't have that kind of money. So being their first electric vehicle where they're kind of testing their electronics and this completely new powertrain, they had to borrow the CX-30 as well as the Mazda 3's platform. And we're going to see some of the disadvantages inside. Unlike the Nissan Leaf or the Volkswagen ID series, those are electric cars from the base up. And because of that, there's more room on the inside, there's more range. Well, it's just a better EV overall. There's compromises, namely that electrical range. 100-mile range or 160 kilometers isn't too much for a lot of people, and for most, it's not enough. But here in BC, 160 kilometers isn't bad. It really depends on the type of person that you are. If you're, well, just driving within the city, the furthest you go is maybe like Whistler every now and then, it's not going to be a problem. You can charge there, you can charge on the way there, you can charge when you're back home, and there's plenty of charging spots in the city. There's actually one right there, it's not being used. So there are options. But if you're, in the middle of Texas, you're not going to love this. In fact, you're not going to be able to buy one because this is only available in Quebec and BC for Canada and California for the US. But first, let's talk about the looks of the MX-30. It's very different, isn't it? It's kind of similar to the CX-30 because it's based on that, but it has a coupe-like shape on the back. It's that coupe profile, which I'm personally not a fan of because it reduces just how much you can put inside. But on this, I don't mind it as much. It's kind of like the QX55. The coupe made it better. So it's completely up to you, as styling is subjective. You can let me know what your thoughts are on the MX-30 in the comment section down below. But here's some highlights. It has a distinct hood that Mazda has and a very distinctive front end as well. I love the headlights on basically every single Mazda vehicle, and this is no different. The grille is a lot smaller than any other Mazda. It's electric after all. And then on the side, we get these fender flares. They're large. Very large. I mean, it's only front-wheel drive. I don't know why it has such large fender flares, but it completes that overall SUV look, which everyone really loves these days. And then these. Mazda, well, they made the RX-8 before. You may remember it. Rotary vehicle, and has these amazing doors. The front opens almost 90 degrees, and so does the rear. So you have, well, great access to the cabin. We'll get to that in a bit. Let's take a look at the backside first. Because the backside is just as distinctive. I love this Mazda plaque that's here. On the top end trim, you can get this dual tone roof, which I'm a big sucker for. Lovely Mazda tail lamps. Just love how these look as well. That dual tone spans the entire pillar in the rear. And then trunk. And a brand new badge, eSky Active. Inside the trunk, well, not big. Manually operated gate, you don't get a powered option, and it's all right. It's about the same size as the CX-30, which is sufficient for a subcompact. But if you're comparing this to like the Leaf, for example, the Leaf is absolutely humongous compared to this. But let's get to the inside. Getting into the backseat, relatively pain-free. I mean, I'm 5'11", and I have enough headroom, and legroom is fine. But the front seat, I had to move that forward. There is a button back here that I can press on, and this will move it back. Into my driving position, well, I'm a little bit more scrunched up back here. It's not the greatest. And because of this pillar here, the outside view isn't that great neither. And that's really it. Back here, you don't get heated seats. There's no USB ports, no ventilation. But I think that's okay. The MX-30, while it can fit people back here, if you're shorter, if you're, just a smaller person in general, it honestly wouldn't be that bad. Speaking of smaller people, let's move this out of the way first. I have my Klek 5 here. I was able to put a rear-facing seat on the passenger side. My wife at 5'2" was still able to sit in front, but as you can see at 5'11", it's a little bit harder. But you certainly can fit child seats in here. However, if you are interested, I have a separate video linked up here where I have a Collect 5, a rear-facing seat. I also had it forward-facing, as well as a Collect Lang in here, just so that you can see exactly how much room there is within this cabin to carry child seats. But let's go to the front. The front seats are actually kind of nice. The seat material is very different than any other top trim Mazda products out there. Is this, well, cloth and leatherette on the side. It's a leather-free interior, but Mazda has kind of spiced things up a little bit with cork. And you see that right here in the center console. You also have it on the door pulls, but that's only available on the GT trim. On the base trim, you don't get these cork kind of door pulls, which is a little weird, but I think they look really cool. The only thing that's in my head is if you have a drink in the middle and it spills, that cork is just gonna soak it up, and I just don't know. I mean, I use cork as like insulators on my dining table, right? And that kind of just looks bad over time. So I'm thinking if this will be basically the same over time, but we'll see in the future. In front, pretty typical Mazda steering wheel here, no real difference. Behind, I actually still get paddles, and they control the regen on this vehicle, and I'll show you that when I start driving. Cluster behind is very similar to other Mazda vehicles, but a little different, because on the left, it's your power meter rather than your tachometer. And in the center, you can still have your speed. I mean, it's a good cluster, there's nothing wrong with it. It's simple, it's just very well laid out. There's also a heads-up display that shows your speed and some other driver information. And then we have our infotainment screen. It's typical Mazda. Use the rotary dial that's in the center to control it. It's just like any other Mazda vehicles. It's a good system overall. There's CarPlay, there's Android Auto, but you would have to plug it in through the USB ports down in the center. There's no wireless option. Unfortunately, unlike a lot of other EVs where there's a lot of technology baked in to tell you about the vehicle's battery and whatnot, the information that's available within the infotainment, it's good, or it's sufficient, I should say, but just others does it better. Being Mazda's first EV, I guess they're learning, but I just wish there was a little bit more. But it's kind of like the Mazda way, simplify, right? And the rest of the cabin, it's about the same. You got really good materials throughout. Top of the dash, it's this injected molded plastic. It's really nice. You get this soft kind of fabric feel thing on the top. It's weird, but it's quirky. I like it. One thing they changed here is the climate control. It's this screen layout, and it's relatively thin here. It's, well, a single zone climate control that is exact same as a lot of other Mazdas, just in terms of functionality, but because it is an EV, I guess they had to put in a screen, and it looks fine, but usability wise, it's not as good as just a traditional rotary knob that you get in the Mazda 3, CX-30, and every other Mazda vehicle. But what is nice is there are physical buttons for you to control your temp, fan speed, there's an auto button, and there's a front and rear defrost for quick, easy access. You do not need to go into the screen for that, so thank you. But I think that's really all I got to say about this interior. Let's go for a drive, because, well, underneath that hood, it's kind of weird. It's kind of quirky. All right, on the road with the 2021 MX-30. It feels like a Mazda should. The steering, the suspension, just dynamically, it definitely feels like a Mazda. And I mean, why shouldn't it? It's a CX-30 based vehicle, so it should feel just like a CX-30, and it kind of does, except the power delivery. Obviously, you know, with the electrical motors, it's very, very different than, well, any other Mazda that has come before. There's 143 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque here. So, I mean, it's sufficient. When you depress the throttle, it does move relatively quickly. It does put you back in your seat a little bit as it kind of struggles for traction as it's kind of raining today. But it's not like any, like Tesla or even like the Hyundai Kona. The Hyundai Kona Electric, like, it spins its front wheels for days. Like, you can billowing clouds of smoke from a burnout that you can do on the Kona, which is quite hilarious and a little bit of fun, but also a little bit wasteful. This doesn't do that. 143 horsepower is enough for city driving. When you're on the highway, when you're passing, it just doesn't have as much power as you want. Like, it does it fine. You're still able to pass, trucks and whatnot, but it doesn't feel as quick as other electric vehicles. That's kind of normal. I mean, there are other electric vehicles that's slower than this. That Mitsubishi iMEV, or however you pronounce it, or whatever it's called, that came out, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, something like that. That was quite slow. But this is better than that, at least. But if you're comparing, 2021 vehicles, this Kona Ioniq, not the new Ioniq 5, just the regular Ioniq. What else do you have? The Nissan Leaf, the Bolt. This is quite far behind. I mean, it's Mazda's first electric vehicle, so they get a pass, I guess. 160 kilometers, for most people, it's enough for them to go to work, go home, go to the groceries, do whatever they need in a day, and then they charge the vehicle. And if your average commute every day is under 100 kilometers or under 60 miles, you're going to be fine with this. Honestly, I think you are. Because, you drive your 60 miles or 100 kilometers, at the end of the day, you go home, you plug it into 110. You don't even need 220 on this. I'll bring up the charging specs as you can see here. You can plug it into level 3, but you don't need to. Because of the smaller battery size, you plug it into 110, I think it's like 12, 15 hours, something like that. It's long, but overnight, it's enough to charge a vehicle from almost empty. You're really never going to drain an electric vehicle. Most people won't anyways, because, when you reach that 20 mark, you're like scared. So, you're going to go home, you're going to plug it into 110. It's going to charge up, in the morning, and you're going to be fine. That's really what this vehicle is for. And there's an app that you can download that you can see exactly, what the charge rate is, how long, it's going to be fully charged to full. It's actually, the app's not bad. You can recirculate all the air and warm up the vehicle and all that good stuff. I mean, it's basically every single electric vehicle has that these days, and Mazda's no different. In my week of living with this, there was a few things that got me a little off guard. This cork in the center, absolutely beautiful. I love it. But it also blocks your cup holders when they're down. So if you need access to your cup holders, you need to flip them up. Then you don't have as good of an access to what's inside your center console. And if you move your center console forward, or armrest forward, where you kind of want it to be, then you don't have access to those cup holders at all. Like, it's just, there's not enough room. So I guess it's just because of this kind of bulkier center section. If they made this a little bit smaller, it may have been a little bit better there. But that was one of the complaints. The second complaint I have with the vehicle is just, it's tight. The back seats, to put my son in here, it was definitely a challenge. I found it the easiest to let him in through the driver's side here. I mean, he's 11 months old, so I'm carrying him in through the driver's side so I can put him into the seat on the passenger side. Just because of how the rear door is open, I can't slip him in like regular cars can. So that was definitely another issue. When he goes to forward facing, it definitely wouldn't be an issue, but he wouldn't get there till 4 years of age, or whenever the height restrictions would be. So until then, this doesn't feel like it's a great family vehicle. I think this is the type of vehicle for those, 1 or 2 people. You want to have more of that urban lifestyle, kind of that downtown life. This is good for that, but I think that's really it. Because if you start to compare everything on specs, that's where it really falls apart for the MX-30. But it does have charm, which I guess that helps it. But charm only gets you so far. And for a lot of people right now, when they're shopping for EVs, the first thing that they're looking at is range. And unfortunately, at 160 kilometers, it is a big deal. It really is. I'm sure, in the next electric vehicle, Mazda is going to get better. It's going to have more range. But this is kind of their first test of, what a vehicle should be, or what an electric vehicle should be. I don't think they're going to sell a lot of these. That's, how I feel about it. But at least it's there, and it shows what Mazda can do in the future. And that I'm happy for. In any case, thank you so much for watching this video. Like the video if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Mazda, I was going to call it CX-30, but it's the MX-30 in the comment section down below. And we'll catch you next time. Take care.